This entitled parent is always underpaying her babysitter, but one night she goes too far when she hires the babysitter and doesn't return. Happy birthday, today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. I worked at a little ice cream shack over the summer. We get some entitled rude people, but this is the best story I have from there, and the most memorable. It was my 4th day on the job, and I just finished my training. My boss, we'll call her Kate, was watching as I took an order for a dad and his 9-year-old daughter. They were the first in line. The dad gets a milkshake and the daughter gets soft serve ice cream. No big deal. I get the order out just as we get the 7 PM rush, which happens every day. Kate and I take orders and make them like crazy, trying to move as fast as we can, because there are 10 people in line. We get down to the last few people, and she was just handing out someone else's order. In the middle of me making a hot fudge sundae, a woman sticks her head through my window and starts yelling her order at me. I give the response that I would be happy to take her order once I finish the one I'm already on, and to please wait outside. I hand out the first sundae, and she pushes an old lady, who is part of the group I took the order of, and who is waiting for her ice cream, out of the way and starts telling me her order. I said I had to finish my order I was already on, and she says how it's ridiculous to make her and her son wait in line for this long. I ignored her and continued to make this poor old lady's sundae, and the mum tries to freaking take it. I pulled it back inside fast enough, told the old lady to have a seat and I'd be right with her. Went out the back door and personally brought it out to her with a spoon and some napkins. I ignored the entitled mum as I went back in, almost running into Kate, who had just handed out her last order. I came around to my window and the woman starts yelling at me about how rude I was to her and her son. I still haven't seen her son, so I assumed he was in her car. The old lady she just pushed out of the way was laughing at her from her table. Kate looks the mum dead in the eyes through her window, leans over the register, and closes the window while she's still yelling. "That's enough of that. No one treats my workers that way," she said, and began cleaning up, completely ignoring the still screaming woman outside. The old lady came up to the window again once the mum had stormed off and handed me a $5 tip. "You're one of the sweetest girls I've met around here. Don't mind what anyone else says." That's the end. The rest of the night went smoothly, and we got $40 total in tips that night. Most often when there's a line, it's not because of the staff. It's just because a lot of people happen to want the same thing at the same time. If you really want the ice cream without waiting, go at an off-peak time, or maybe just do what everyone else has to do. Wait your turn in line. But seriously, pulling your head in the window? Pushing old ladies? What's wrong with you, lady? This is ice cream. It's supposed to be a fun, enjoyable thing out, and you're just ruining it for everyone. The characters: me, EP, mate 1, 2, 3, bystander, train driver, entitled kid, didn't really do anything much, just listen to his mum. I go to a reasonably expensive school in my home city, not named for obvious reasons, and the uniform is pretty distinctive. To get to it, I usually get a train from around 20 minutes to and from, plus 15 minutes walk to the train station. For much of this, I am accompanied by a few mates who live in the same general area. Looking at us, you wouldn't think much. 3 to 4 relatively skinny teenagers who go to a good school. However, out of the usual squad, 2 of them do self-defense and the other martial arts. Both have done it for over 6 years and are relatively high up in skill levels. This was a couple of years back, so some of the details may be a bit rusty. Now, onto the story. My mates and I were waiting at the train station after school one day, and we're talking about the usual things we talk about. Video games, school and the like. We are the nerds of the school. We see our train rock up to the platform and we get on. For once there are more than 10 empty seats, and my mates sit down in a set of 4 while I stand. We put our bags on the ground outside the way of the walkway and continue our conversation. A few minutes pass, and then a mother with a small kid, no more than 5 or 6 years old, comes onto the train. By this point, most of the other seats were filled up, so my mates offered to move for them, and she accepted. We picked up our bags and moved down the carriage a bit to an open area where we could stand without disrupting anyone. 2 stations later, the mother gets up, leaving her kids still sitting down, and starts asking us questions about our school. How is your school? I hear that it is very good and gets consistently high results. Yeah, it's very nice, thank you. We really enjoy going there. This general theme of question goes on for a few minutes, and she asks us about the teachers and the administration, how we feel about going there, etc. After a few minutes, she gets her kid and says, "You will go to this school when you are older." The kid, who is a boy, nods at her to acknowledge he heard her. She turns back to us and asks, "You all look like you can afford it. Could one of you please give my son your uniform? It looks expensive and I don't think I could afford it." We all look to each other like, did she really just ask us to do that for her son? I talk back to her and say, "Sorry miss, but we don't want to give our uniforms away to you. If you want to get them cheaper, then there is a second-hand store where you can buy them." At this, she starts to get annoyed at us and says, "What do you mean? You all go to that school. If anything, you should be able to afford a new uniform. Give it to my son now." We pick up our stuff and make to leave to the next carriage, but before I can pick up my bag, she grabs it and starts running down the carriage. Inside are my laptop and 3 to 4 subjects worth of books that are decently heavy. M1 and M2 give chase and tackle her to the ground. While they're doing this, M3 rings the driver with the emergency button near the door. I didn't hear the exchange, but the basics of it were that there was an attempted robbery and could he please stop the train at the next station to wait for the police. I call the police and a bystander near me helps my 2 mates to contain the lady and console her child who starts to cry. The police arrive at the next station and take everyone's account of the story. Backed up by the security cameras inside the carriage, the lady is taken into custody and charged with attempted robbery. I thank my mates and the random person who helped us, and we eventually arrive home. She lost the court case and was charged with 14 months of prison, and was fined the cost of the train stopping. If anyone asks, the main cost of the train stopping was the fine from pressing the button that stops the train. If pressed incorrectly, the fine is over $2,000 by itself as a minimum. Coupled with a lawsuit by myself, she ended up with a few $1,000s out of pocket for the whole thing. Ironically, the uniform total cost less than $400. She could have paid for over 4 sets of the uniform from the fines from stopping the train alone. When will entitled parents learn that their actions only cause them more pain than if they just did the right thing from the start? Also, if you couldn't afford the uniform for the school, how on earth did she think she could afford the tuition for the school? So let us start. I'm Ghanaian, and if anyone knows anything about West African diaspora, you will know that Ghanaians and Nigerians share a lot in common, and often find themselves in the same communities. Also, if anyone has met any entitled African parent, you will understand the theatre that is surviving them. I have many stories to fill a whole novel, but let's start small. So the entitled family. Cast: entitled mother EM, entitled father EF, and entitled kids EK1 and 2. This is a Nigerian family that had moved into our little town and naturally entered my parents' circles, and therefore became family friends. This started the process of them becoming a thorn in our family's sides. The event I'll mention is what severed ties between our families. So, after a couple of years living in our town, they moved to the nearby city, where EF got a nice job as a consultant, doctor, in cardiology. Good for them. But when they moved, they put EKs into private school, and became integrated into the high society, and my city is a very affluent city in the UK. If their entitlement was a 6, they were 12 now. Once in a while, when they wanted to go to their high society parties, I would be asked to babysit their EKs for the night. I didn't mind. I got on with the kids as I established that I am not one to frick with. If they obeyed the rules, they were rewarded, but I had no qualms punishing these kids and held firm to my boundaries. One they understood. They were mostly well behaved. In fact, I got way better at parenting their kids than them. When I gave instructions, they obeyed. They didn't even obey their parents' instructions. Anyway, I have a busy life juggling a master's with a job, so usually when I babysat the night, I usually had plans for the day after, but as time went on, the EPs kept ignoring my plans and finding ways to make me stay the rest of the day. like forcing me to go to church with them and conveniently going shopping in a mall for hours when they were meant to drive me home. I lived a 40-minute drive from them. No matter how much I protested, they kept finding ways. Anyway, the event. I was asked to babysit whilst we went for dinner on a Friday night. My mother's birthday was on Saturday, so I made it abundantly clear that I had to leave in the morning to spend the day with my mum. They said they will drop me home by 9 AM on Saturday. I agreed. They went to their party. I played with the kids, and after a fun bubble bath, I sent them to bed. Around 2 AM, the EPs have still not arrived, and I went to sleep. I woke up around 7 AM and realized they were not home. I rang them to find where they were. This was the phone call. Auntie, African custom to call older females aunt, whether they are related or not. Please, where are you? You said you would drop me home today. Oh, OP, the party ran late. Are the kids okay? Is something wrong? The kids are okay. We were wondering where you were and when you were coming home. Oh, we're in our hotel room. We have a meeting all day today and we'll be back Sunday. They had lied and gone to London for the weekend. Auntie, I can't stay the weekend. I have to go to my mum for her birthday. I'm sure your mother will understand if you miss it as you are busy with the children. No, she won't. My mother is dramatic, and you promised me. Maybe I can take them home with me. No, there is no way you should take them on a public transport. I don't want them sitting in a dirty train. But I have to go home. No, stay. Stay with the children and don't take them anywhere. Do you hear me? It's not like I left you with nothing. You should be grateful I cooked for you. Small thing I ask of you and you are being disrespectful. Where are your manners? Didn't your mother raise you to respect your elders? One weekend with children and you're throwing a tantrum. I feel sorry for your future children. She hung up and refused to pick up my calls. I ring my mother and tell her the situation. I am upset. She is upset, and the best way to fight an entitled African parent is to send another entitled African parent to battle with them. My mother has been a mother longer than her, and has mastered the African mother dramatic manipulation technique. So my mother rings her and lays into her. My mother rings again and tells me to take care of the children for the weekend, but this will be the last time I will ever babysit for the family. So I stayed the weekend and dealt with the entitled kids' shenanigans. My parents arrive on Sunday to pick me up, and together we wait for the entitled parents. Now bear in mind, I don't know what went down on the phone call between two sets of parents, but when the parents arrive, they look shook. The minute they see my mother, they are scared. They don't even say anything to me. The entitled father just pushed 150 pounds into my hands, and my mother drags me into the car. The EPs lock the door in a hurry, and my parents are fuming in silence on the way home. I have never seen such animosity. Anyway, that was the last time I ever saw that family ever again. That's honestly pretty shocking if you thought you were just babysitting for a few hours, and then all of a sudden, you have to stay the night there. You wake up and they're like, yeah, you've got them for the weekend. What? What do you do in that situation? You don't want to just abandon these children like their parents did. But at the same time, you can't stay there. You've got things you have to do. The utter irony as she's like, I feel sorry for your future children. Yeah, I'm pretty sure OP feels sorry for your children right now. This was on my little brother's birthday, April 17th. Me and my mum were at Walmart picking up a cake for everyone to have, then a small personal one for him to eat himself. After grabbing things like groceries, the cake, and a box of diapers, me and my mum decided to grab him this robotic dinosaur toy as another birthday present, because his dad, who was deported out of the country before quarantine was put in place, had managed to send my mum some money and said to buy him something from his dad. As we're going through the aisles, I stopped because I wanted to grab a pack of trading cards for myself when I see a Bulbasaur plush. Last one, sitting beside two Squirtle and a Pikachu. I was paying for my own stuff, so I didn't ask my mum if I could have them or not. Going back to join her, we grabbed the dino toy and a few more quick things from the pharmacy. We go to self-checkout, and I decide to go to one and buy my stuff quickly, so I can help my mum out with the heavier stuff in the cart. I scan the Bulbasaur first and put him in the bag before scanning the cards, a drink and some candy. I'm about to put my money in to pay when I notice a small child is looking into my bag. I don't know if it was just that he happened to be really pale or if he was sick, but I wasn't gonna take my chances since I'm a higher risk. Only there because my mum jacked up her shoulder and can't lift heavy things. I swipe my bag away from him and shove my 20 into the machine, asking him, very nicely, to go back to his parents. He looks at me and says, "You got your Bulbasaur. They only have Pichu and the turtle in the aisle. Could we please trade? I already got the turtle and I don't like Pichu much." I didn't even get to speak because as soon as he stopped speaking, his mum started. "Just give him the darn toy. You're like 12. You don't need a freaking plushie. He asked, now give." I looked at her before speaking in a tired tone. "Ma'am, I'm 17 years old and I do not think you should be speaking to me like that. You should learn some manners and be a better role model for your child." He had asked me already to trade the plushie. I get cut off. "Oh, shut up already and give my baby the toy. I don't care how old you are. I'm an adult and you're just a child." My mum's looking ready to murder. I sent her a quick text in my hoodie pocket that, thanks to autocorrect, said, "Let Key handle it." Turning to the kid, I ignore his mum for a minute as I talk to him. "Sorry kiddo, but I want to keep the Bulbasaur. How about I give you some candy for asking nicely instead of trying to take it?" I handed him a bag of M&Ms I had planned to eat on the car ride home, and he seemed content, telling his mum he wanted to go, as I turned and walked to my mum and grabbed the heavy stuff for her. The EM comes over, barely says excuse me, and my mum whips around, nearly hitting the poor boy with her long braid, freaking Rapunzel looking hair, she's been growing it out since she was a child, and says, "You better be over here to apologize to my son for being a little witch, and not be trying to take something he bought with his own money." Now, I can't remember the argument as I tuned it out, pretty sure the kid did too. He was happily eating M&Ms, but it ended quickly as I just finished scanning everything and put myself between the two and said, "I get the adults are almost screaming at each other, but can you at least pay so I can put everything in the car? The ice cream's gonna start melting, and you left your youngest two with your sister." Reluctantly on my mother's end, me and my mum started to leave, and the kid comes up and happily chirps, "Thank you. I'ma tell daddy I was a good boy and asked nicely, and I'll make sure he knows mommy was a meanie." On the car ride home, my mum cussed up a storm about that woman, and I chugged some Coca-Cola and wondered how the dad was gonna react to his wife being a meanie, according to his son. My little brother shoved his face into the cake and more so demolished it instead of ate it. Now, if there's any way that an entitled parent story has to end, you want it to end with cake. I mean, really, all stories you want to end with cake, right? I don't think that's just me. Submit your story to be read on the channel at voiceyherestories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.